Tonight is the first on Bench Talk 101 as we attempt to resuscitate one man's dream project to top up its tank and set it heading towards reality. Most of you joining live will know him personally, and dare I say thousands watching will know of him yourself through his wonderful posts on social media and woodworking forums. I first encountered Jim Hendricks here on Bench Talk 101, where his enthusiasm for researching and collecting tools and techniques and making these easily available to all was so clear to see. After a great start, world events and health and personal tragedy intervened and halted progress on Jim's working museum, seemingly forever. Ours and the wider community, I think, will benefit greatly from his dream becoming reality. As such, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Jim and two other members of his team as we kick off resuscitating phase 2. Over to you, Jim.
Thanks, mate. Good evening, everybody. And it's lovely to see so many people. Blimey, where has everybody come from? I've got a little presentation. I don't normally, obviously, need the presentations to work to, but Shrenik and I have done a few slides to make it easier for you to see graphically what we're up to. But this evening, the primary focus is on creating a video as well, but also for the live audience here tonight, is to explain what we're doing, when we're going to do it, and what you get out of it as a community here and in the community in a wider sense in globally. So I don't know if you wanted to start the presentation, Shrenik, and we will kick off. I'm highlighted. That's good. Yeah. So the three things that are launched at the same time, and this is all kind of revitalized. I've had a YouTube channel for quite some time, and it's rebranded now, and I'm tidying it up a bit because it's got loads of videos of Alfie and all sorts of other stuff on there that's not relevant. But it's relaunching as KTTV, and that will only contain videos going forward that we create, certainly for this project going forward, and then subsequently there will be weekly videos of content from various, not just woodworking, also metalworking, glass working, so stained glass work, lead working, forging, and so on and so forth, and various restoration projects. So that TV channel would be a core to it's your window into what's going on. If you're not physically here in this country, or you're not visiting the museum, it will be part of the virtual side of the network. Within that virtual side, we've also got the Learning Vortex, and I'll come on to the Learning Vortex during this presentation. Thanks, Shrenik. So this is one of Shrenik's, because he was involved in all these Heathrow Airport projects and digging holes under London. I'm sure we're going to disappear into the ground soon with all these underground trains. So Shrenik's put this together. It's years since I've done blue sky thinking, or whatever is the latest word. The actual KT Tools working museum concept contains all these 4 elements, and that's a physical workshop which hasn't been built yet. That's what we're aiming to continue to build and create here and elsewhere in phase 3. Then there's the media center, which has been built yet, but is doubling up as the workshop as well, because I've had visitors and we've had people come round, and it contains all of the artifacts and tools that I've assembled, mostly from my collection, some from other people's either collections or donations. And so that building needs to be freed up to turn it into a media center where we will do podcasts, interviews live, and we'll also record video for content on the channel, on the KTTV channel. Now, the new element is the Learning Vortex. It struck me that we need a single point where we can all go to get information. At the moment, there's a vast amount of people in our community, and it's growing. It's growing since COVID. I spoke to Matthew Platt, and exponentially the sale of hand tools has grown, as people want to have a quiet, relaxing environment instead of power tools and PPE and all that sort of dust and everything like that. So it's becoming, people are learning to understand that you can just do hand tool working quite as efficiently and as beautifully as with machines. So all of this virtual data information is growing exponentially. We've got photographs, we've got videos, we've got people doing. I mean, Shrenick came and visited the workshop the other day, picked up a Robert Towel plane and said, "Can I copy this?" And he means it in metal and wood. And I said, "Sure." And he got a piece of paper and started drawing a scale model. So we've got drawings, people's articles. I don't know if any of you were around when Victor Koog from New Mexico had his WK Fine Tools magazine that self-exploded, imploded. That had articles by Chris Schwartz, myself, and people from Sheffield, where all that information was held together in one place. That doesn't exist anymore. So my concept here was to recreate this. Why is it a vortex? Because it's like a tornado. It's sucking all that information, all that data into one cloud, and then organizing it, make it searchable, and make it accessible to absolutely everybody in both directions. So you can add to that vortex or you can take away from that vortex, and it will be moderated and checked and so on and so forth. So that will grow and grow and grow. And that is the it's a glue that's holding all of this together. So collections are put up there, photographs. So if I typed in Robert Towel, it will come up infill plane maker, 18 so and so, London, England. Examples are physically in the working museum and at Richard Arnold's, and Bill Carter's got one, and so on. So it will tell you where you can see one and use one. It will then link to diagrams that people have drawn, like Shrenick, and it will have articles of people making one or restoring one. So with that, just that one name, all that information is collated together into one vortex, and I think that's a very apt description. So it all involves the community, and that's everyone that we see here tonight. And everyone outside of this particular bench talk. You've got Unplugged Woodworkers, UK Workshop Forum, American Fora, and so on and so forth. Okay then, Shrenick. Yeah, that's a hint. Shrenick's given me a hint. Flick to the next one, Jim. So this is the media center. It was a traditional log cabin that was built, and I put the money together, and a couple of guys came around and put the logs in, but that was the easy bit. So it's all been kitted out, ready to be a media center. So it's quite, well, it's not small, but it's quite, it's a lot smaller than we'd need for a museum. So it's incapable of housing the whole museum. Off to the right, you see a little bit of greenery there. Well, that's actually wood, by the way, with moss on it. That would be the site of the new phase 2, and that was going to be the site of phase 2. At the moment, that's not built, and that's what we're going to build. So next slide, Shrenick. So this is the inside of there. You see the early stages of me building this. There are collections. On the left there, you see a Roubo bench that's original from France that I got. And there's examples like that. And believe me, you cannot swing a cat in there now, as Alfie will tell you. At the back, there is an example, a beautiful cabinet from Italy donated by Federico Poncia, which houses all of the planes from the 1700s and early 1800s. So those are very valuable artifacts in their own right, but they're all sharp and they're all treated with Alfie Shine to keep the historical, I got the advert, historical patina, and to preserve them for future generations. So you could just walk and open, that's one of many cabinets. You can just open that cabinet and pull out a wooding and use a wooding to make a, in this instance, a coving. On the right hand side there, you'll see that's the Gabriel collection, Christopher Gabriel, London at 1797. Here we see just a selection of molding planes from him. There are 3 more boxes. That shelving unit is completely full now. on the right there in that picture, there's a glass cabinet which houses all the contemporary future classics, the Ollie Sparks, the Bill Carters, and the Phil Edwards, and so on and so forth. The names could go on and on. So we can do a comparison of today's contemporary, the very best of today's contemporary makers, sitting right alongside makers of centuries ago. And everyone who visits the museum physically can take any one of these artifacts out and use it on, or copy it, or take notes and so on. We're not precious. Just below that is where I set up the media center in that building, early stages, and you can see me there. I'm just doing a presentation on how to make your own dies, so that you can die to emulate old finishes when you repair something and you want to match the wood color to the next. I'm doing a video there on that. So the media center was working, and there are videos online. You can go to my we'll put all this information in the chat. You can go to my YouTube channel and look through there. It's getting sorted as we speak. So that's phase 1. It's paid for, done, dusted, out of the way, including all of the artifacts themselves. The next slide, Trinity. So why are we relaunching KTTV? Well, as I mentioned, we were isolated during COVID, and hobbies have just gone bonkers. There was a dramatic improvement in technology. Zoom, we're sitting on it. I bet you if I asked you amongst you now, very few of you would have known what Zoom was before COVID. More and more information is being digitized. Apart from what I plan to do for the Learning Vortex, like the National Archives at Kew, for instance, spent most of COVID beavering away in their vaults, digitizing all sorts of information like Guildhall records, wills and testaments, births and deaths, and so on and so forth. It's all there. This is stuff that we didn't have digitized before. The Learning Vortex will link to that and allow you access, and we will have, I'm hoping to get free access to those archives, because from an organization point of view, so we can go in and look for the history of a particular playmaker that we may have found at a boot fair, say, a name we've never recognized. Heaven forbid that Jane hasn't recognized. And you can go and look and try and find out whether you can find out births and deaths and find the person. And this is what we're encouraging. I think Richard, you're coming with me, aren't we? We're going to Kew, and then we're going up to London, to around Westminster, to look at the London playmakers in Westminster, because little is known of them. So here we are, information there. If we find any new information, that goes on the Vortex, and it's no longer hidden in the smoke of time. It will ultimately seek to channel all this information, therefore, and it's a resource for all of you. You all have access to it. There's no fees or anything. There's no access fees, anything. If we do tuitions, which I'll come on to later, if we do tuition one-to-one, then obviously we'll charge a fee or ask for a donation, and that will go into the pot. And then we'll do group sessions, maybe 12 people at a time. There will be an attendance fee for that, and so on. But the rest of the tuition, the videos by me, unlike any other resources, it's all completely free. And the more we build up, the more you'll have accessible to. So in a way, as I mentioned on the GoFundMe page, treat this as rather as a donation, as a subscription, a very cheap one-off subscription to a massively improving and increasingly better and better resource that was going to be created. Next slide, please. So there, just to summarize, there's 2 aspects: the virtual side, which we call the Learning Vortex, and I've gone through that. And then there's the working museum, half of which is created, half of which we're here tonight to create a video alongside any donations that anybody wants to make live. We're here. We'll create the working museum per se. And this is phase 2. There is a phase 3. Next slide. This, I'm, going back to what, to amplify what, or expand upon what Mitch was saying earlier about meeting me at he kindly came up with quite a few of the fraternity here to my wife's funeral, to support me. And we sat down at the wake, and I said to him, you know, I really wish I need to focus on something now because of the trauma that I've been through this year. And I'm one of these people, if they sit and twiddle their thumbs, then all hell could let loose. And particularly in the winter with SAD, because I lived in the tropics. I mean, you know, coming back to England is like putting somebody in a refrigerator. So I mentioned to these guys, and they said, "Why haven't you done it then?" And I said, "Well, I haven't got the money now. I mean, prices of have you seen the price of wood? I think Richard and I were talking about the price of plywood tripling, let alone live oak, and everything, all the costs. And even if I did have the money to do it, I've got probably a third of the money to do it. I would have done it. Even if I had the money, I at the beginning of the year, exactly in parallel with my wife being very, very ill, ended up in critical care. And there's two doors in critical care. I always have a laugh. One says morgue, and the other one says maybe. And I made sure I got through the maybe door. But it, you know, that was the first day I started walking again. So I can't do what you see there blanked out on the left, which is phase one. I can't do that again. I can't build that again physically. And that's what I said to the guys. And they all said, well, so what? We'll just, you know, there's plenty of mates. You've got plenty of mates and all over, and we'll come and do that. And if you want the money, we could crowdfund for it because everybody crowdfunds for things today. And they convinced me, and I said, all right, let's go for it. And there you go. So, and the rest is history. Quite a few people got together and volunteered to be the core, what we have ended up calling the core team, for want of a better word. And the core team is basically people who've already, should we say, committed themselves, either already or future promises of those volunteers we were talking about, the muscle, in this case, the brain muscle of Scott Anderson. I won't tell you too much about this. Scott is going to take over for me and tell you the details. But this is, that was in June that I sat with Mitch and Richard and the two Richards, Ivan. We just sat there, and that was in June, and now we're here, and it's because of those people. Just remarkable. And just asked me how I want this done, and I just brain dumped my imagination, my dream of what it looked like, and there it is on the screen. Next slide, there's Shredding, and I think I pass over, don't I? Oh, I've got to summarize. So what is all of this? It's a place where information, history, our heritage, the knowledge of that is passed around, where we can teach it, where we can put the media and the contacts. So if you had a contact to the archive at Kew or the Guildhall Museum or one of the ones in New York, or the Galileo Museum down in Florence, where I've got contacts when I made the Galileo and Plumb Bob, amongst other things. And there will be so many. We're all concentrated together for the benefit of all of you. And that's really what it's all about. That's my dream.
Evening, everyone. So, like Jim said, he came to me and asked me if I would wanted to be involved in the actual design to a certain extent, and the drawing, concept drawing at the moment, which can be taken through fully. And I don't want to spend too much time, but I can run these through. I'm just going to screen share, so give me a wee second. So this is to scale. And what we can see here is we can see if everybody can see my mouse on the drawing. I'll try and move it slowly. This is the media center as it is, and this is new. I just drew that in today. This is a part of Jim's house, and there's a patio at the back here. But what we can see just now on the screen is a concrete slab, which has got a shed on it just now. And to the side of it, he had some timber storage with a wooden deck. So I need to move that screen well out of the way. Excuse me, everybody, because this is my tabs over here. So the first thing we can do is we decided that that wooden deck wouldn't be good enough to actually build off of. We had, as Jim said, it was a kind of brain dump that he had with me, and he was able to convey everything that he wanted, and not very long time actually, but it was quite fortunate that the very first drawings I did when I came back, it just kind of blew him away. It was everything that he wanted. I kind of looked at design of traditional English timber framing, especially with green oak. There are some things that this is concept at the moment that we have to finalise, but it's just an idea at the moment. These drawings can be taken through. So what I'm going to do now is just add on, and you'll see a second concrete base on the side. We did have that slightly smaller. We've now taken it out full size. And again, just to kind of reiterate what we've got here is this is all 360 and able to move around. I'm not saying people will have a chance to see that. I'm going to build it up from the base up. Jim initially shared some drawings of traditional framed buildings that had a sloping roof. And one of the things that we had were constraints on height and distance from the fence. So we've left a metre, which is the minimum size you would have from his boundary fence at the back, you can see here. These are all just renders on these just now, nothing too special. It's just for ideas, obviously. And the grass, and then there is steps in here, but this eventually will become access. And we've thought about it all. This has to become access for wheelchairs eventually. So if I rotate that around, there'll be wheelchair access into this once I build it up, and then all the way down to the media centre. And we've checked the slope on this and everything else. So on the constraints of the actual building itself, we had a 2.5 metre height to the peak of the ridge. And that was something that we couldn't actually, if we go higher than that, then it just takes us into different areas that for building control and stuff like that. So that was one of the constraints. Other constraints that I came across, and it was me that kind of decided this, which came across some of the design, was access for double doors. So let's just start at the bottom then and work our way up. We looking at, and this is the English way, is it's not, I'm not saying it's not the Scottish way, but it has been done. The actual area of the building would be laid on top of concrete. And the concrete work would all be done by this point, would be laid in brick. Minimum 3 courses high, which gives you 150 mil for a damp proof course. It lifts the timber kit off the concrete. Of course, you would have a damp proof course underneath the timber anyway, to a certain extent, to stop any moisture being able to rise up through that. But this lifts it up and it gives it that break from the ground, which is the most important thing. I'm going to start now, and the next thing, and this took not too long, but with the timber frame. So this is a 6x6 timber frame. The design's been in and out all over the place. It's been changed. These are all 6x6 posts and beams. There's 2 main purlins running through. And when I add the roof on, basically you're not going to be able to see inside very well. So I'm going to switch these things back off. But eventually we'll be able to actually kind of almost step inside this building. So I'll step it up from this angle here. I'll try and rotate around and let you see. I'm going to switch the fence off at the back. These are the timber frames. One of the things looking traditionally was that they would have bracing in them. Diagonal bracing, possibly curved edges, or I'm not saying wainy edged, but not just straight pieces of timber, mortise and tenon, pegged dowels, all the way through. This one at the back was added for strength. That was a different change. It does change the kind of look of the building slightly if I rotate it right round. This was one of the views that I came across. So this idea here, looking at this back end, it is symmetrical. I could make this parallel rather than perspective. It's symmetrical on both sides. It's the same size, both sides. This shape in the middle is actually the height and width of 2 doors with a door frame. And it really made sense. This beam looks strange just now until the roof goes on. But that symmetrical part of that, when I come up with the idea for that and showed Jim, he just found it. He thought it was amazing looking. He loved it, because we didn't have that on for a while. So I'm going to rotate this back round and then start to build up again. So we'll stick the roof on it. We will, not really the way you would do it, but we'll stick the ridge in, and then some rafters on top. And I do need to speed this up ever so slightly. So it's got a very, very low pitch. The pitch is actually high enough that we can actually, or it's not high enough that we can use some traditional roofing methods like slate or tile. So we might be quite limited in using, and Jim's quite happy to use maybe even like felt shingles. or something else that will work just as well. So at the moment when I put the roof on, and I've got that called shingled roof, like so, it would be not the whole way across. So this part on the right-hand side here, you're going to see eventually it is going to have glass going across the top of it. And Jim's got a, whoops. It's not happened here. Oh, there we go, it is on. Okay, so the glass roof. Inside, when we eventually build up the inside of this, and his idea for this, there were benches along here, and you'll see that eventually when I build up, and this will be natural light coming through from the roof over the top of the benches. If we start to build up some of the panels and stuff like that, then round the sides, and that'll be quite quick. We can stick on some doors. So there'll be doors from access from the side here, level, hopefully, with not much of a threshold. And these doors on the side here will be bifold doors, or they'll pivot so that they don't take up as much space when they're open. And this eventually is going to become like a patio out here. So let's build up the sides. And this is post and beam, and then it'll have studs going up the outside. And design-wise, I actually moved the diagonal braces back so that we could actually get both of them into the 6x6 beams. So we've got the ridge, we've got all that. So stick on the studs, and they're there. So the studs, you'll see there's space for the windows at the moment. So upright studs right round the outside, and we were talking about this, and there's still design elements to be had, but I think Jim and Shrenick were both quite keen on possibly mortising and tenon these in, not mortising in, housing joint. So creating a housing joint top and bottom, mortise and tenon pegged for the braces, all very, very traditional methods of construction. We'll stick on the windows on the front. There we go. To let more light in. And I'm going to switch all this off in a second so we can see inside, and then I'll switch on the cladding on the outside. So this was something he was very specific about, which gave me no end of joy in drawing. And that is cladding 2. There we go. And that is that Jim was quite specific. They wanted Western red cedar, waney edged, which I hadn't done initially. I had done shiplap or like featherboard, and it was too straight. So I had to go back in and draw all this kind of waney edge in and try and make it look more kind of natural. And we'll rotate it right round. So this is Western red cedar. It's kind of, it's rebated so it actually overlaps each other, attached to the stud-work. And you'll see the beams coming through to actually create eaves on the outside. Still to decide on the size of that. I think Jim wants them slightly bigger than what they actually are. Like I say, this is all concept at the moment. So Western red cedar all the way around the outside. Very, very natural looking. But to see inside, obviously, just now you can see the finished concept. I can switch some of these on towards the end. So we'll switch off the cladding just now, and the windows. So we're back to just the basic kind of structure at the moment. And I'll be able to go back inside and have a look at this. But one of the things Jim loved was being able to actually go inside and actually have a look, so you can actually place yourself almost inside the building. To build up this concrete would be... how far back up there? So it would be joisted out to lift it off the floor, insulated. We've spoke about all of that, and then it would have flooring over the top of it, a wooden floor on top of the concrete. Obviously, then it's not hard. And coming down here a little bit. One of the things with he didn't really ask for, but I decided to draw some benches. And the benches are kind of like important to size, because then you get a kind of relative. That's if I can find them. Okay, so at the moment I've stuck 3 benches in there. The middle one is optional, doesn't have to go in the middle. 2 benches along the back wall. And one of the things that we spent a lot of time about, and this is obviously not finalised fully for design, is where do we put all these tools? There's going to be hundreds of planes. So one of the things that we've decided was to actually put in some shelving to start with. And this whole back wall. He was very, very keen on having a round window in here. It's not beyond the team of people that are going to be working there to actually put a round window in, because it's going to let some amazing light come through this here. That would need to be involved in the shelving as well, but that's not impossible. Nothing's impossible if we put our mind to it. So if we actually go in just now and have a little look round, we can actually see that there's shelving going all the way around, and none of these are actually proportionate to the height of planes or anything like that. They're just shelving at the moment. Obviously, these things could be then designed better once we actually get the building up, but getting the building up is the important part. There we go. And all these beams, this centre beam in here was something that gave us gave me a little bit of distress because it breaks up this whole area and stops it being as free flowing. But Jim just loved this centre post with the 4 braces coming off of it, even the one in the back. And this beam here that's lifted up, obviously for headroom. You couldn't put it in the same height as the ones around the sides. It's quite low actually. But he just loved all these corner braces in here. And then obviously you're going to big pegs and everything else in it. It's going to look amazing.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Mitch, as well. So I thought I'd talk about the next steps. Jim's talked about what this project's about. Scott's talked through the design for the next phase. And before I get on to what the next steps are, I thought I'd just briefly mention how I got involved in all this. And I want to say that I think since the first moment I spoke to Jim, he's been talking about building this this working museum, and I'd been saying, I want to come and see it. I want to come and see it. I want to come and see it. I think from day one, and Jim will know that I kept asking, and obviously with COVID and other things going on, it just didn't happen. Then came this project, and Jim asked me, "Do you want to come over and have a look around the site, see what we're going to do?" And so went over to Jim's. I think I went along with Richard Hughes, and we had a little walk around, and it was really obvious that the media center is just full, right? It's full of tools, and I think, Jim, you understated it when you said that that shelf was full. I think it's overflowing. There's so many amazing tools in there, and as Jim said, on my most recent visit, I sat there for a couple of hours while Jim popped out and just drew the towel mitre plane out while looking after Alfie. And that was I think the pleasure of just sitting there and being able to study some of these old tools that I don't own, that I don't haven't had the ability to get hold of yet. The amazing part of that was that that's something I think everyone should have the ability to do. So for that reason, and not that reason alone, but that's one of the reasons why I think I'm just so passionate about this, because I think it's really about the sharing of that knowledge and giving people access to things that they may not have as well. So on to the next steps. There's obviously a few options for how we could go about building that design. And I think initially we thought building it ourselves is going to be far too difficult. We'll bring someone in to do it. But then we looked at what are the critical factors that we need to think about this project. What's this project about? And what's the whole working museum about? You know, it's about the community. It's about sharing skills. It's about recording it so that people can come back to it and look at it later. And then the other factors is, of course, we're asking people to donate towards it. We need to use that money wisely. And then actually, time wasn't a priority. So the idea of outsourcing it didn't really matter if we got someone in to do it quickly. And therefore, the self-build idea, given that we want this to be a community project, you know, we want people to come together, do things together, build that community, share skills and record the whole process. We felt that outsourcing it might be a limiting factor rather than beneficial to the project. So that's why we chose that option. And then moving on to what needs to be done. Scott's done a brilliant job of conceptualizing the design. That obviously needs to be completed. But also the existing site has a workshop on it. So we need to clear that workshop. We need to build through this whole process till we get to actually fitting out the inside and building those benches, the shelving that Scott was talking about. You know, once we have the building, we'll know exactly how everything goes, and we'll need people to help maybe, you know, come along and cut some dovetails and build some boxes or chests for certain tools, whatever it is. And everything that's in green, I think, is an activity that we need people to come in and help in person. and step in to do your part, and even if it's just for a day, you know, it's something that we'd love for you to come and do. The last part is, of course, fundraising. So I've got a QR code on the screen, and I'm going to be nice and cheeky and ask if you're able and willing, just to try and scan that QR code and see what it's all about. Jim's written a lovely article to go along with the post, also supported by Helen Welsh, which actually I think puts in better words than I can why this project is so amazing. So thank you, everyone. Back over to you, Mitch.
We're going to go to some questions now. So if we get the whole panel up, and first of all, I can see Chester.
My first question. First of all, congratulations on the whole concept and the all the work that you've got going into this. My first question is, I was able to scan the QR code. I'm just wondering who John Hendricks is.
Okay, hands up. In my bank, I have to be John, so it goes into an account that I set up. It's not an escrow account. I don't have access to it. And I was christened John, but then this black guy came along, and 1972, everybody beyond that point calls me Jimmy. There you go. So hands up.
Okay, that answers that question. The two things that I'm seeing that are missing in this concept, and I'm not sure they're necessary, but I think if you're going to do any kind of video operation, that you need electricity inside this. So, and I didn't notice any accommodation for electrical, while I know we're unplugged in a lot of this, but just the idea of the computer systems and things like that, electricity will be needed. Secondarily, a human condition, I don't see noted there is, and I don't know how many people can use John's John, but I think there may be a need for some sort of plumbing, either for the natural resources that need to be gotten rid of, or a sink to be able to use for coloring or anything like that. So
I'll answer those both. I'll answer both those. Really delicately put. Typical North Carolinian. See, I corrected it, didn't I? That must have been a huge insult.
No, not at all. I'm originally from New York, so.
Oh, yeah. I thought that's not a, you know, there's not enough hee-haws in there.
No.
So, as far as the electricity concerned, the media center is fully fitted with 16 amps, and that's a standard for maximum. It provides electricity for power and for lighting, and that is currently in there. That is acting as a museum at the moment, but it is going to be the media center. So ostensibly, that is going to be the place that needs the power, and there will be obvious feeds into the new building, which will all be done by a qualified. In the UK, we have to have a qualified electrician to come and certify it if it's a shower, i.e. involves water internally, or if it's an external building. So that will definitely be done. So there will be power. However, there is part of the design concept going forward. There is a plan on the side that has the largest roof space and the glass. 2/3 of that is tile. Now, 2/3 of that could be tile that looks like tile, but is actually solar cells. There are now beautiful antique-looking felt shingles, so beautiful shingle roof, but it's a photo. Building is my observatory, where I've got an astronomical dome and a warm room, and that's entirely powered by solar power. And it's standalone, and it runs and it drives equipment far more powerful, and one computer system in there, and network routers and all that sort of gubbins, all off solar power and lead acid batteries. My lord, how long ago did I do that? So it's feasible that we could do that from a green point of view. And you will notice, and something that we glossed over because we didn't want to go into too much detail, but access to both the buildings, you notice there's a slope in there. I've got a very personal vested interest in it will be universal access. So wheelchairs, older people with sticks and so on can come, because it is my plan, if I don't have to use it, by the grace of everything known to me, then at least we can even have workshops for people who wouldn't normally have access to workshops. So that's the plan. Your second urinal discussion. Do you know that the word loo, which we use in England, comes actually from the French, and it's not from Waterloo. It's all hotels on the floor that the room that was the communal toilet was number 100. So that's where loo comes from. So the loo is actually, and Alfie agrees, you see, he's lying. He says, you're lying. So shush, Alfie. Is actually in the building that Scott put in and had so much difficulty hiding because it wanted to intrude, is that wing of the building is an outside, is when I call it outside, it's a toilet, bathroom area, and that's direct access to that facility. So you've got access to toilet, washing facilities, water and everything, and I think ultimately a shower in there as well. So yeah, those are your two questions answered for you.
Well, yeah, one other thing, that center post, while I also like the brackets going up and
braces,
it
yes,
would also accommodate a nice post drill, since it seems to be the only center post. But I was wondering if you could not split that into two and leave that space more open. But
I don't think it's going to be obstructive. And the way I say this is, and my plan was actually put in a little round table so we can have an espresso talking area like they do in Italy, where they all stand around a post. You know, that's kind of, I see workshops, when we have a workshop, say half a dozen people in there, we're going to have coffee breaks. We've got a coffee machine going in there and everything, and it's not going to be this rubbish you get in these vending machines. It's going to be properly made by my assistant.
Just put some buckets around the bottom, Jim, and there's your loo problem solved.
But this is the whole point. Yeah, I actually,
in lieu of anything else.
In lieu of anything else, yes. I actually, God Lord, and Smithy hasn't even had a chance to speak yet. Yeah, I think I think it's going to be a centre place. There is a little. I suppose I'll give the secret away a little bit. Big donations and people who wish to commemorate their lost loved ones or whatever can donate, and we were putting plaques on beams in memory of people, or you know, if somebody wants to donate, then we can have a sponsor a beam type thing, and there will be a lot of little, I'm going to make heaven's sake hand engraved plaques to go on there in commemoration of people, should they wish. So and that gives us a floor to ceiling. That will be like the Cayman Island Bank, you know, of plaques. So yeah, that's so it's kind of important, that beam. Plus it ain't going. End of story.
Great.
Okay.
Love it.
Ian Lambert, would you like to?
Yeah, I just wondered on the sun's direction in relative to the building. Where was south, for instance?
Okay, south is the aspect of the building where the glass runs across the roof for 75% of the day. That is encircles that, so that faces the southwest. So it's as the sun comes up after 11 o'clock. I've actually, the existing building there's got glass all the way on that side of the building, and at anything from 10 o'clock in the morning onwards, it will be completely lit by the sun, the whole building inside. And that's why we're going to incorporate blinds in there that are going to be, again, a project that we'll get a workshop together to do. So we'll have a research project. We will talk about the potential for using various materials like cloth, leather, you know, those roll top desks that you have, or things like that. So there'll be plans to be able to shield that, both for light if it gets too much, or for insulation if it's in the winter. On the morning, the trifold doors plus the bifolded front doors, or double opening front doors, are facing the east, northeast, and such that the sun mostly comes up in that direction. So from in the morning, it's lit from that direction, and then after lunch, it's lit from above. So it's beautifully placed. The Scott mentioned the window on the wall that doesn't have, with the apex wall. Right at the top there, there is space to put a circular window. And the plan is to do courses on lead glass laying and stained glass window making. And the plan is to do a carpenter working on a bench as a centerpiece in color, so that all day throughout the south, as the sun as our star transits, it will light up the room with color.
Sounds great.
Evangelistic, but there you go.
Thank you.
Well, I don't see any more questions, so we obviously did a pretty good job explaining it all.
I've got a question for Jim.
Sure.
Jim, why KT Tools?
Oh, okay, all right, because that's almost as good as the John one. That fooled a lot of people. I saw that and I thought, KT Tools. Yeah, it's not my initials, is it? My sister, my only sister, very close to me, Karen, died when she was 34. She had a massive aorta heart attack. I never called her Karen. I always called her Katie. And when I retired and I started KT Productions, which incorporated photography, woodworking, tool making, everything I do starts with KT something, and it all comes under the umbrella of KT Productions, which is actually the address of my domain name. So it's in memory of my sister.
Thanks, Jim.
It's okay.
Okay. Well, I think
Everybody went silent then. Did I
wraps
affect
it
that
up,
many
but
people?
I hope you'll all agree that it sounds like a very worthy ambition, and if you'd like to help support, either financially or with physical labor, or just giving it publicity, all of that would be very gratefully received, I'm sure.
I've just got couple of things to add, Mitch, if we've got time. I think we've got time. We're normally running questions quite late, aren't we? Yes, it is very much not just the donations, but on the donation side, monetary donations. We've had some really, really tremendous donations already, but that's not necessary. Even $1. I've got a media following. We worked out the other day of just one channel of about 50,000 people. So if it was $1, we'd do it tomorrow. We'd be able to do this tomorrow. So don't feel obliged to donate vast amounts, sums. Every single penny counts on this. And it's not. I understand we're all of us going in one way or another through some financial trauma at the moment with the world the way it is at the moment. But if you any way would like to donate your time at all, what we're looking for at the moment are potentially somebody with accountancy to assist us with making sure that everything is controlled correctly with regards to the escrow account that it's in. So we'd make sure that none of us project managers can go off and buy the Ferrari I was looking at last week. Shiny, they're red, don't you think? Red brown?
Purple.
So anybody that would stand in and do that almost as a kind of like proof to everybody that that's where their money's going. And going forward, phase 3 will be to detach this whole thing physically and virally, or virtually, into a new building site, a place that we buy land, we hopefully near water. We build exactly the same thing. After all, we've done it before, we've beta tested it, and that way, when I pass my mortal coil to the stars, it's not going to die with it. and also we are going to plan to employ a full-time curator and media manager of the cloud and so on and so forth. And so this is future-proof. It's going to be future-proof. The thing is, this snowball that we started rolling, Mitch, in the Red Bull pub at my wife's wake, we started that ball rolling, and it's continuing to roll. And so treat this as a beta test, if you like. But the ultimate plan is to have a place in the UK where people can donate or sell their collections, and when they pass on, that collection doesn't get destroyed and split up, or even, heaven forbid, thrown in the skip or in the fire. That, I'm afraid, is the destiny of so many tool collections in sheds across UK, certainly, and I'm sure it's the same across the world. So in the future, we will have a lot of impetus going on that snowball. KT Tools, I'm aiming for 500,000 subscribers by the end of next year from 2,000, what I've got now. I'm always an optimist. So accountant is something we would kind of like look for independent. You might just do it for a living. It's virtually no time a month. It's just being there to say, write a check to somebody for some live oak rather than us doing it. So that's that. And I'm absolutely rubbish at video editing. So is anybody that's any better than me, which is probably 99.9% of the people sitting here tonight, if they've got 5 minutes for us every week, I can chuck raw data through to them and they can turn it into something a little bit more professional than I produce, because we will be producing hopefully one at least half an hour episode every single week, going through the build, going through the project. And also me building something we haven't mentioned, a diorama. I'm making a diorama in boxwood of exactly the scale model, architectural model of the building to keep me occupied during the winter. And that will be ultimately, when it's finished, it will sanity check Scott's beautiful work. It will prove to Chester that beam in the middle isn't actually, I can get my finger past it. And also it will act as a historical record of what we've all done together as a community, coming out of somebody who didn't think it would be possible. So those are the two key people. I think, Shrenik, there were other people we were desperately looking for proper people to do. Was there, can you think?
I think
I have a little thought, guys, but Andy's come along with another question, I think. So should we take Andy's question?
Sure, absolutely. More questions than, yeah.
Yeah. Fairly basic one, really. I mean, there's obviously, fantastic range of things that can happen as part of this. But can you say a bit more about timings and sequencing? Is it like a planning phase for some months? How many months? And then start on the construction once a whole set of things have been done, and sort of what happens next? How can people get involved now?
Well, you remember, because don't forget Mac Timbers, Andy. Do you remember Mac Timbers in those days when you, me, and
how could I forget
Richard Tomes, and we'd all bring each other a tool that we'd found and swap the tools? That was a tradition, if you remember rightly. Bring it. Oh, there's a screwdriver that looks like Andy could do with one of those, and turn screw, sorry, that Andy could do with, or a chisel that Bill could have, or whatever. Those events happen rarely now, and Richard Arnold's charity event no longer happens, and so on. My plan is next year, 2024, to be ready to have 4 of those events, so that we can come from far and wide, and actually people are already booking flights even from overseas. So going forward, this fundraising starts now. When we reach 20k, and it will keep going, hopefully, we're in a position where we can start ordering groundworks and building material for the extension. Volunteers will come and we'll dismantle the existing rubbish, and then we've already sourced two reasonable sources of live oak, so that will be happening in the winter of this year, along with the building of the diorama, which is, as I say, a sanity check. In the spring of next year, I hope to have that delivered. and by that time, the existing building, which is quite a nice shed, actually, if I say so myself, will be empty, and that will be the site shed. So it'll be under cover, and we'll have 3-meter-ish beams. I think the biggest, Scott, is 3 meters, isn't it? A 2.5-meter scarf
Yeah,
jointed.
the longest ones need scarfed for
Yeah.
the purlins going across the roof.
Yeah.
They'll be scarfed through the middle with posts underneath them.
So as Shrenik mentioned, we will do our own joints. So that jointing will be party number one. There'll be a frame jointing party number one, which will be in the spring of 2024 next year. Then after that, given depending on, well, obviously we have to be a bit malleable with regards to this, but sometime in late spring, party number two framing will be done. Again, to finish off the joints. So people will come and say, what can I do for the weekend? We'll have key party weekends, and somebody will be responsible for barbecues, beers, and cakes. I can't think of anybody to do the cakes yet, Andy. Can you? I think anyway. So and so it will be a social event as well, a spectator sport, as well as a community creation meeting. And then once all the joints are done as per the specification that we'll be drawing up with Scott, the building is ostensibly ready for erection. I'll pause for titters. And then the third party will be for a building that, so raising the frame will be the third party. I think Richard Arnold and various others, we were talking about doing the doors and windows off-site, so that's separate. They will come in, the cladding will be done, and just before fitting out, we will have a final party for this time next year, whereby we will have all the people that have been involved invited, and if they can come, it will be a kind of a celebration party. So does that give you a fairly decent timeline to that?
Yeah, and so much so I'll stick in a supplementary question. Presumably the way would-be volunteers can find out what's happening and when they could be useful would be through your revised KTTV YouTube channel.
Sure. Absolutely, 100% going to be on the pulse. You'll be bored stupid by the amount of Facebook and Instagram and bench talk. This isn't going to be the first bench talk. Well before once we get the wood, that's the critical thing, guys and girls. If we don't have that money to get the wood, it's like having a ship without a tiller. We might as well just float about, because we won't be able to even start. So this is fundamentally important, and the groundwork, obviously, because we can't put it on anything. But other than that, beyond that, it's mostly volunteering for things, and donations hopefully wouldn't be necessary too far in the future, because I'm hoping to get Patreon set up on YouTube, and the money coming in through sponsorship and coffee mornings, a YouTube coffee mornings, PayPal coffee, and that sort of thing. And I'll be doing podcasts and video casts live, and we'll have super chat. So you pay for a question. So you pay $10, you get a question allowed, and that sort of thing. So there'll be a lot of promotional activities going on in parallel with this build. So yeah.
Can I sort of just jump in and
Sure.
Talk about the key milestones where the fundraising really matters at the moment? So it's the ordering of the timber here and getting that concrete pad in, but also later on in the build, actually getting the timbers to do the doors and windows and the cladding, and then even the fit out. Those are the key processes where we're really going to need the support with the funding. And those are the key milestones, those are the key drivers. And once we get the design completed, we can order the timber. But in that period, while we complete the design, we really need to raise that money to be able to order the timber. And the lead time on the volume of timber that we need is not going to be short. It might be a couple of months, could be possibly a little bit longer. And therefore, if we want to target spring, we really need to be fundraising this side of Christmas to be able to put in the order and therefore complete the design this side of Christmas to do that.
Sure.
So those are the target timescales. But they can always move and shift as they always do in a project.
So what wood are you looking for the post and beam?
Oak.
Green oak.
Yeah, sorry, the construct. Yeah, that might have been a little bit not obvious. I mean, it's obvious to us, I guess, but oak is the building material of choice here because it's cut it's either live oak or green oak, whatever you want to call it. But it's wet. It's Alfie said, yes, I know it's wet. Yes, it's wet oak, so it's easy to cut the joints at that point, but equally it's twice as heavy, twice as difficult to move about, and so on and so forth. The idea is when you make the joints, it dries out and shrinks, and the pegs and everything actually pull it together as a building is put up wet, if you like.
It's also long lasting. So.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's going to be there.
I think it's worth touching on that actually, Mitch. We talked a lot about the choice of materials for the building, and the obvious ones were the green oak and then the cladding as well, the cedar cladding. You know, looking at long-lasting materials so the building lasts as long, and that was also one of the considerations with the design, as Scott was talking about earlier. Actually, having a few layers of brick to keep the timber off the ground, and that really adds the whole longevity of the building to make sure that it's not a building that's going to come down quickly from weather. So I thought it was just worth touching on that.
Absolutely.
Is the Western Red Cedar, this would be imported timber, I take it. I just wondered whether you might consider larch.
Yes, it's nothing's written in stone except the stone. It absolutely, and this is where community comes together. I mean, if somebody says, I watched your video, Jim, and Western Red Cedar comes from foreign sourcing, and all the carbon footprint involved in that. However, I happen to like Western Red Cedar in terms of its ability, its what it looks like when it patinates. But I'm open to examples to be sent to us, and also it'll be relating to cost. There is a Western Red Cedar supplier, the next county along from me, who offer quite good prices for Waney edged timber, and it looks beautiful when it's done.
In this country, the materials usually come down as reserved matters in planning, and so it's something that can be changed along the way. Obviously, cost might influence things, and also sustainability.
Yeah,
I did my last shed was clad in larch, Waney edge larch, which came from the Lake District. I'll send you some pictures of it.
Absolutely.
About 9 years now it's been up, and you can see how the colour's looking.
Sure. I mean, it has to fit within the topography of the existing, area. But I'm more than happy to take people's and I mean, I've not used natural timbers in anger to build something like this. So I'm very much I know that the oak was the right choice for the framing, but certainly from cladding and also the materials we use for the shelving. I mean, we were talking to Richard about it the other day, and just veneered plywood. When I say veneered plywood, hand cut in the workshop veneer plywood. Then we're open to suggestions, because obviously things like shelving, you don't want it moving, you don't want it warping, and so on and so forth. So, and also the cost as well. But looking at some of the prices of Baltic plywood now, I think you could probably buy sheets of oak for cheaper money these days. But yeah. Any more questions from anybody? I was expecting
another one. What hasn't been mentioned? You mentioned insulation, I think, under the floor. But any insulation going into the walls then?
Yes. That was discussed at infinitum in terms of keeping it looking as if it's not there.
Yeah,
that's very much something I'm quite good at. Pretending something looks what it isn't. and that's why Scott he grazed upon it. But the beams and the bracings moved back such that when the cladding goes on, that's your ground level, and then there's obviously a permeable membrane there, a breathable membrane that breathes out but doesn't breathe in, bit like a slug. And so that's the first layer, and then discuss with Shrenick the modern materials I used in cabin number 1. Superfoil, which is a technically advanced equivalent to Kingspan or whatever, but instead of being 4 inches in thickness, it's about 1/4 of an inch. So you can lay it as a layer, and it gives the same thermal insulation value as 4 inches of Kingspan or Celtex or whatever you want to call it. Other brands are available. And then on top of that, panels that we would create wattle and daub type patterning on it, and then they would go on the inside in between the beams as the final layer, so it doesn't look like it's there. So like in a Tudor building, you look on the side and you've got a white plastered wall in between black, usually black painted timber beams. That's what it'll look like. So from a point of view, yes, it's technically advanced thermally. No, it's not cheating, because either that or we'll all bloody freeze during the winter. So yeah, and I'm thinking we're looking also into adding little things like a pot-bellied stove, so that all of the offcuts of wood can be chucked on there, and the speed at which that heats up a building like that is amazing. So something of that nature, or we could just put underfloor heating in, solar powered, but we don't know yet. Certainly not part of this fundraising. Really.
Sorry, Jim, I can see Murto's got a question.
Sure. Murto, hi.
Hi.
I can't speak Greek. I can't speak one word of Greek. How do I say welcome?
Καλώς ήρθες.
Καλώς ήρθες.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, good accent. Wow.
Good.
So I had 2 questions. You've already just answered the first one about heating. Universal access would have to
Yes.
accommodate people who are not hardy northerners. So okay, I'm happy to hear about the heating. The second one, a bit less exciting but necessary, is the matter of security. Once word gets out that there are all these valuable tools in this wooden structure, how will they be protected?
Well, apart from the laser beams, I've got I've actually, no joking, got eight security cameras at the moment, and probably will have more, which are into a cloud, and they go directly to any device, in my phone in particular, like a Ring doorbell type thing. So even when Alfie goes out for his nightly pee, it sets it off and reminds me on my phone. So yeah, it's something we consider. I am actually out in the middle of nowhere relative to the fact that I'm only 20 miles from London. But yes, very, very good point. And something we'll be looking in going forward. And then insurance obviously would be the last resort, something we don't necessarily want to have, but have to have. It's currently insured, but I think with given from a point of view of concept of what is a museum, this is a private museum for our community, so it won't be open. There won't be a little man sitting at the gate taking money for tickets or anything like that. Certainly on this phase, maybe on the next phase, maybe, and possibly, but it will be by invitation only, by appointment only, if you like, for individuals, 24/7, literally, 365 days of the year. However, and it has been right from day one. So people, I mean, Sugo's just come on the call here from Italy. He's phoned me up. He said, what you're doing on the 6th, only I'm flying into Kent and popping over to see you, and then I'm going back on Sunday. And I said, what else are you going to do? He said, oh no, that's it. So it's this is the excitement that we've got, and I include Athens it's a destination for people coming into the UK. So we're quite close to, and that's another benefit. We're within 45 minutes of Gatwick, an hour and a bit, Shrenick, I think, from Heathrow, where Shrenick is. Shrenik has a limousine, for instance, and he's picking our friend Siggy up from Melbourne. He's flying Melbourne, Dusseldorf, Stansted, and Shrenik's picking them up in two or 3 weeks' time to come and visit as well. So the door is open all the time, but going forward, there will be, like I said, one-to-one tuition could be done here. I've already got Phil Edwards, who's a plane maker par excellence, and he's coming up and offering to do a course for people who want to donate or pay for teaching how to make a hand plane in a week, sort of thing. So we've got lots of courses with the stained glass window, for instance. The plan is to do a stained glass window for the building, and we're going to do a course on it. So somebody's going to come and show us how to do it, and everybody's going to make a little bit of it. The doors and hinges and everything, because it's oak, would not be steel or metal, iron. They would be bronze, and we're going to make a small bronze casting facility available so that people can come and cast the hinges for the doors, and obviously going down the line. But initially, we'll just put temporary ones on. But that's the plan. So teach people how to make their own hardware for not just buildings, but boxes or cupboards or kitchens or whatever they want. So this goes beyond woodworking. It goes into the peripheral, and that's what makes it so exciting. Yeah.
Great. And if you're going to be around just after Christmas, I'm going to be in the UK for Christmas, and I'm going to visit Shrenik, so we could both come down.
Shrenik's already said he's going to drag you over here, so you're more than welcome.
Oh, perfect. Excellent.
Yeah, so it's on his itinerary. Don't worry, we sorted you out.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we felt so sorry that you were like, the Grinch at Christmas. That you.
Yeah, it's all right. I think I'm gonna have a better time than anyone around here.
Yeah,
so
yeah, you're more than welcome when we. And also something I hadn't mentioned, and it is very much an interesting thing for you, and Shrenik will tell you. I live right in the epicenter of probably the most highest concentration of medieval and Tudor and Elizabethan buildings around, even in just the next street or the next village. There are the next village has examples that are older than the 12th century. So when people visit, they've also got that as a benefit. Or if their family, they visit with their family, they stay at a hotel. This hotel half a mile away. There's 2 hotels half a mile away, both good budget hotels. Their family could go off into the countryside and entertain themselves. There's even a digger land where you can take kids to drive JCBs.
Wow.
I haven't any idea how a child of 10, how much damage they could do with a backhoe is beyond me, but apparently that exists as well. So we've got family entertainment facilities around here when father or mother are at the bench. So yeah, it's all there.
That's good to know. That's very good to know. Yeah.
Any more questions? Okay, should we wrap it up, guys?
Yeah, sure. Well, just to say that any more questions anybody's got, I am available on Instagram, Facebook Unplugged Woodworker Group, my own Facebook page. I'm available on YouTube, and also anybody wants my phone number, just give me a call or FaceTime me or whatever you do these days as a kid. Then I'm more than happy to answer anybody's questions as part of the project director job. Yeah.
Usually I thank the person who's given the talk on these evenings, but today I think we should give thanks to everyone who's listened to the team talking this evening.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in that case, let's raise a glass and toast the audience and the bench.
The bench and any donors and donors of time and money. Thank you too. It's wonderful. I was in tears all day today.